this is really gameplay. So it's in-game, really what you will experience during the game. So here, it's beginning where you will be able to create and customize your character. So there is this small cutscene with a painter that is, trying to draw your portrait, and you can choose here your gender, of course, but also some different faces, and also, well, hair color, different haircuts, and so on. So it's what we used to see in different RPGs. I mean, it's not that original, but we tried to make it, relevant with the time period. So we tried to have some haircuts that are, consistent.
I like this haircut a lot.
We see a lot of different sort of novel ways of doing a character creation screen. In Fallout, it's like shaving, but this is such a nice touch to be sort of sitting for a portrait. Now you just had a brand new trailer that really emphasized sort of the character side of things. I feel like when we talked to you at E3, it was all monsters and the terrifying wilderness stuff. And now I find out that we're not monster hunters. It's all about diplomacy.
Yeah. So, well, at the beginning of the game, you will learn really about all that, because you're creating your character, the Sade. The congregation is not here for a long time. They have begun to build a small city, and your job there will be to establish some relationship with the other nations from the continent, but also, obviously, with the natives, and to try to, communicate with them, to try to understand what is happening on the island. And even if your personal main goal is to find a cure for the disease that is actually plaguing the continent and that your mother is dying from, well, you will also have to to do a lot of diplomacy with different other factions that are here.
And it's not just the factions either. You have companions too, right?
Yeah, each companion is related to one of the factions. So there is 5 companions, and there is 5 other factions than the congregation of merchants. So there are all important people in their faction, so their voice will matter. So when you're going to visit, for example, some other governors from the other nations, or some kings and queens of the native, the fact that you have a companion with you that is also important in their faction will probably make them more welcoming, and these companions can help you understand what is happening in the faction, what you should know about the different tensions, or the political setting of this faction. And of course, if you're bringing someone from the opposite faction, it can lead to a terrible mistake.
That's not really great diplomacy. It's like, hey, I heard you hate these guys. I brought one of them.
One side of my brain wants to ask you all about the skill trees, which we just saw. They're very in-depth.
Yeah.
The other side of my brain just wants to scream out, like, is that some sort of badger bear? There's so many wonderful monsters in this game. Every time we see this game, I feel like there's crazier creatures that start coming out of the woodwork.
Well, we try to create some original creatures, different from what you are used to see in this type of games. So there are these animals that are different, and the idea was to create the same, I would say, amazement feeling that probably some when some people reach some new islands and new country, they discovered strange fauna, strange creatures. They were trying to draw them, and most of the time it looks very strange, and we're very weird when we're looking at the drawings now. And this is what we wanted to give back to the players, so a kind of amazement feeling and the discovery also.
I really love that, because if you look at like cave paintings of horses, they're like kind of thick.
Yeah.
And then you're like, did they have weird horses, or did they just draw horses weird?
With very small head.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think overall this game has it doesn't look familiar. It doesn't look like the same as everything else. It's got a unique look, and the monsters have their own kind of original designs. I read somewhere that you did a lot to kind of create a custom language.
Yeah. So all the natives have their own language. When they are all only together, they will speak their own language. They, of course, speak English too when they're talking or exchanging with the settlers. They may not know all the words, depending on how far and how deep they live in the island. Of course, some clans that are living close to some settlers are, more used to use English, as the others, well, they won't like even to use English, so they will, be reluctant to talk with you. But we create that language really to reflect also this difference, this cultural difference, and we worked with a linguist that really created a completely whole language. It was very funny because we had the actors, all the actors were playing some natives. They had to learn that language. So the linguist the linguist is living in Shanghai, and he was sending some video with him saying, "Hello, I will, today we'll give you a course on Tier Freddy." And all the actors, were repeating in front of the video. It was very, very funny. But they were amazing, very professional, and it was for me very moving to hear that language, being talked and finally seeing these characters taking life.
Yeah, I mean, to make a video game from the ground up is an immense project, and that's when you can even be following the lead of other games that are out there, and you're like, no, we need to create original monsters, and oh, by the way, let's have a foreign language as well. Why not?
Now,
it's an undertaking.
This is kind of like a tragic question, but you're essentially, I'd say, invading a sort of a native space where there are creatures indigenous to that area in the wild, and you're kicking their asses and they're spitting blood everywhere. Are you kind of the bad guy from some perspective?
Well, you can. I mean, as a player, we have had plenty of choices. You will meet plenty of different people. You have to understand that even the different faction, they are not thinking all the people are not thinking the same thing and acting the same way. So amongst the natives, there are plenty of different clans. Each clan has his own philosophy, his own point of view on the settlers, and you can, decide to support some of them or to fight them. And it's exactly the same for the other faction and nation coming from the continent. So it's really up to the player to decide how he wants to positionate himself. Facing all these different characters. Some native will ask for his help, and some others will, don't want to do anything with the settlers. Some will try to fight back, and you can really decide during the game to side with the natives and say, okay, in the end, I don't want to be the bad guy.
Right.
I want to be. To support them. So it's really up to the player to decide and make his own way through the game and through the story based on his own philosophical choice or just just emotional or how he feels towards some characters. And there is no moral judgment from our part.
And so there are. The emphasis now is there are tons of characters. There's relationships, there's dating, there's friendships. Those things can go sour. What does that look like on the back end? That seems like tremendously complicated. And keep in mind, I have no idea how any of this is made.
And honestly, it is huge. And for us, it was 3 years of development nearly. And we are a small team. We are 30 in the team. We went up to 50 on some moments during the development, but we are a very small team, so we had to work a lot, to be honest. But it's really made out of passion. We completely are fan of this type of games. We were missing this type of games since some time.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted to create again this type of game. So, we spent some time with the team to create this universe, to give life to it. We know that we can't compare to a huge studio where they have hundreds of people working on it, but we come with our honesty and our love for this media. And I hope it's visible while playing. It's a generous game, and we tried to add all we could. So crafting system, as you can see it in the videos.
I saw some kissing there. Are there romance options?
Yeah, there are romance options.